It is time. Grab yourself a cup of coffee or a tea, get somewhere comfy, and let's talk about my favourite books of 2025. Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Steph and I'm obsessed with all things books. Today we're going to be doing my 2025 reading wrap up, and I am just so excited to do this because I have read some absolute cracking books this year. Firstly, let's go through some stats. 2025 has been my best reading year to date since I started tracking books, and I read 71 books this year. That's almost 27,000 pages. Now, I do just want to stop here and sort of say that it doesn't matter how many books you read a year. If you read one book a year, you're a reader. I hate people that say that, like, oh, you've only read however many books. It doesn't matter how many books you read. For me, reading has really helped my mental health. It really helps slow me down and it chills me out, and I think that reading can be such an excellent tool for that. That's why I love reading and that's why I enjoy reading. I think the difference for me this year has been that I have utilised audiobooks a lot more than I have in previous years, and I'll sometimes stick an audiobook on when I'm taking the dog out for a walk, when I'm at work and I'm doing something that doesn't need my brain so much. I'll put on an audiobook, and I think that I haven't done that in previous years, and I think that's why my reading total has boosted so much this year. However, I also think the thing that has helped me reading wise and hitting my reading total has been that I set a number of books each year which is pretty low for me. I set 36 books every single year, 3 books a month. That feels very doable for me. That literally takes the pressure off of me when I'm reading, and I don't feel like I'm reading for sport. I'm not reading to hit a number. Okay, let's talk about the books. So out of these 71 books, 51% was fast-paced. Is that any surprise? I am a thriller girl. I love a fast-paced book. And 49% were medium. So we had no slow-paced books. I know for a fact if I read a slow-paced book, it will put me in a slump, so I avoid those like the plague. Page number. 10% of books was less than 300 pages, and the rest was between 300 to 499 pages. That's sort of, again, pretty standard for me. The last few months of the year, I started reading some short stories because I just wasn't in the mood for like a proper book. I just needed something quick, snappy that I could read in one sitting. And I did that a couple of times with short stories, and it really, really helped. Fiction, non-fiction. 1% of books I read this year was non-fiction. Is that any surprise? No. I do think I want to try and better that next year though, because that's pretty bad. But I am a thriller girl through and through, so I don't know. I'm not going to pretend like I'm not. 50 books I read this year was categorised as a thriller, with 35 of them being categorised as a mystery. The rest is pretty much crime. Yeah. Again, no surprises here whatsoever. The one I do like to look at each year is the format. And I would say my format this year is split more evenly than it ever has been before. 28% was physical books, 37% was digital, and 35% was on audio. So that is the most evenly split those formats have ever been since I've been reading. And it is something that has helped me step up my reading game this year. My most read author is the same as it's been for the last few years now, and that is Mr. John Marrs. I read 4 John Marrs books this year. I read 3 from Joe Callaghan, which is just the whole Cat and Lock series, and I also read 3 from Jennifer Lynn Barnes. Okay, so let's go on to my favourite books. So my rating system, so to speak, is pretty harsh. I don't rate anything 5 stars unless it completely blows me away. It gives me what I call my 5-star feeling, and I can't stop thinking about it for days on end. Now, this is not a lot of books, and I see some people who rate so many books 5 stars, and then it kind of gets to a point where I read that book and I rate it 2, and I'm like, you know, and everyone has their own rating system, and I understand that, and some people do rate based off of vibes. But for me, it has to be a spectacular book that I cannot stop thinking about. So out of 71 books, I only rated 8 books 5 stars this year. Now that's actually more than normal. I think last year I only rated 6 books 5 stars. So for me, it's a rating that I don't give away easily, and it is incredible books. I give a lot more books 4.5 stars, and for me a 4.5 star rating is a book that is great, incredible, kept me gripped, but there's just something that's not quite there. And that could be that it felt a little bit slow in the middle, or I didn't particularly like one of the characters, but it was still an excellent book. So we're going to talk about the 5-star ones. Now, these are in no way in order. I'm going to do them in order of I read them. So my first 5-star of 2025 was Worst Case Scenario by TJ Newman. TJ Newman is an incredible author and I have enjoyed all of her books to date. She used to be a flight attendant and she writes about basically plane crashes. Now, something that I have realised in 2025 is that I actually love a disaster thriller. It really keeps me on my toes and I just really enjoy those books. Whether that makes me a psychopath, I don't know, but I just really love reading those books. I have read TJ Newman's first 2 books, Falling and Drowning, and this is her 3rd one called Worst Case Scenario. And this one is about a plane crashing into a nuclear power plant, which is absolutely the worst case scenario. I rated her previous books 4.5 stars, I think, but this one I rated 5 stars. I was in tears by the end of this book. It is so much more emotional than her first 2 books, and it's just got something about it that this book put me in a reading slump because I was like, nothing is gonna hit the same as this book. Like, I was just like, I couldn't stop thinking about it for weeks afterwards, and even now I'm still like, oh my god, imagine that happened. Incredible book, and I would highly recommend it if you're a bit like me and you're into disaster thrillers. You kind of enjoy that, keep you on the edge of your seat throughout the whole thing. I loved it. My next 5-star book of 2025 was Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera. I have seen everyone talking about this book, so I got FOMO and I jumped straight in, and I am pleased to say that I absolutely love this book as well. Listen for the Lie follows Lucy, who basically can't remember if she murdered her best friend years ago. This book has a podcast element to it, which was the first book I'd read that actually had this podcast element to it, and I really loved it. I've heard that the audiobook of this is incredible, but I read this on my Kindle and I still really loved it. I actually gifted this to my best friend for her birthday in February, and she read it. She doesn't read a lot of books each year, but I give her a book like every year, and she said that this one was so good and she really enjoyed it. If you're in the lookout for an audiobook that's going to keep you gripped, it's got the podcast element to it, I would highly recommend this book. My next 5-star of 2025 was Broken Country by Clare Hall. This book had me in an absolute chokehold for weeks afterwards. This book is said to be a romance, and it kind of is, but it kind of isn't at the same time. It's a romance mystery that sort of reads like a thriller. It's so easy to read. This book is just so heartbreaking, and it poses one of those sort of moral dilemmas that if you were in that situation, you don't really know how you would react. And I like books like that kind of make you think a little bit and kind of go, okay, if that was me, what would I actually do in that situation? And Broken Country does exactly that. I just can't recommend this book enough, and I think this could potentially be my book of the year. It was one that just completely shocked me and just stopped me in my tracks and was like, whoa, that was incredible. And for me, it was really a leap of faith because it was a book that I really wouldn't normally pick up. I don't particularly like the cover and it wasn't screaming to me, but it was just so good. So if you're on the lookout for a book that's really going to make you think, is slightly different to your normal, I would definitely try this book. My next 5-star of 2025 comes from the main man himself, Mr. John Marrs. I think John Marrs probably is my favourite author of all time. I have read just about all of his books. I think I've only got the Minders left to go, which he says himself isn't his favourite, and I've heard from a lot of people it's not their favourite, so I've kind of been putting it off a little bit, but I do plan on reading it at some point. Keep It in the Family is one of the books that just completely blew me away in 2025. Probably because it's so dark. This book follows a couple who are moving into a new home and it's a complete rip apart job. They're taking down walls, they're completely doing it up to make it into their dream home. Until they go up into the attic, and what they find up there is completely shocking. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying this book is super dark, and I mean super dark. I think this is the darkest of all of John Marrs's books, and I've just about read them all. And this one is one of the ones that's probably going to stay with me for a long time. It was just so terrifying, so gruesome, and the twist at the end completely got me. So yeah, if you're into dark books, I would recommend this one. If you think it's going to be a bit much for you, check the trigger warnings, because this one was very, very dark. Time to completely change genre, but my next 5-star of 2025 was Carrie, Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I was super excited for atmosphere like everyone else, so I was like, right, to get me in the mood, I'm going to read a Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I decided to pick up Carrie, Soto is Back. I would just like to say I don't care about tennis, but this book made me so obsessed with tennis. Like, I cared so much about this book, and Carrie Soto is one of my favourite female main characters in a book in a long time. If you haven't read this book or don't know anything about it, it basically follows Carrie, who is a tennis player, and she was the very, very best tennis player. She thinks Serena Williams types vibe, and she'd won everything there was to win. She'd had like the record-breaking amount of Grand Slams, until this new tennis player comes on the block and is threatening to take her title. She basically comes out of retirement. She's like, I'm not gonna let that happen. I'm gonna break the record first. This book is just so powerful, and I think Carrie as a main character is incredible. She just completely inspired me. Like, she's just so ace. She's a feminist icon. I just really, really love this book. I think I read it in 24 hours. I could not put it down. And if you're looking for something that's really gonna inspire you and have bold main characters in it, this is the book you need to pick up. I like to say that I think me reading this book and then a couple of weeks later reading Atmosphere probably contributed to why I didn't like Atmosphere, because I just felt like the characters just couldn't compare, and I am one of the people on this platform who didn't like Atmosphere, and I am sorry. Oh, actually, I'm not going to apologise. I didn't like Atmosphere, and I am bold enough to say that. I just thought that the characters were too bland, and where I completely appreciate that Taylor Jenkins Reid was writing women in STEM, I am a woman in STEM. I'm an engineer, and I just thought the characters were far too bland, and I just didn't care. Oh, that was maybe not a good thing to say. Moving swiftly on before this YouTube channel gets cancelled before it's even off the ground. My next 5-star of 2025 was It's Not What You Think by Clare Mackintosh. Clare Mackintosh's newest book, which comes out early next year. I was very grateful and lucky enough to get an ARC of this book. Clare Mackintosh is an author that I'm looking to prioritise going into 2026. I've only read maybe 3 of her books so far, and every single one I've really, really loved. So it is an author that I do want to start reading her backlist. It's Not What You Think follows this woman who phones her boyfriend when she's at work just to see how he's getting on as he's working from home. And she hears this female voice in the background. She's like, who is that? She's got pretty bad trust issues from her previous relationships. So she rushes home, and when she gets home, she finds her boyfriend dead. But it's completely not what you think has gone on. And I just thought this book was so good. It definitely features themes that Clare Mackintosh hasn't really gone into before, and I found it quite surprising. And I've heard early reviews from other people saying that they didn't really like the way that it went. Me personally, I really enjoyed the sort of route that she took in this book, and I think it features a lot of important themes that are pretty prevalent in the UK at the moment. So yeah, one that I really enjoyed. Was never any doubt that it was going to be a 5-star for me. But I will just say that it does go in a route that's not normal for Clare Mackintosh. But I still absolutely loved it. And then we're on to my second last 5-star of 2025. And this book just makes me so excited for next year when the last book in the series comes out. And this book is Human Remains by Callaghan. This book is the 3rd installment in the Cat and Lock series, which is basically about an AI police detective. And it's just, these books are just so clever. They're just so clever, and I think Callaghan has done a great job with these. This series comes highly recommended from the likes of What Michaela Reads and the Pastel Bookshelf. So I jumped into this series this year and have not been disappointed. I will say that as the books have gone on, I've rated them consistently higher. So I think I rated the first book In the Blink of an Eye 4 stars, then I rated the second one 4.5, and then this one has been 5 stars. The ending of this one made me cry. So these are about Kat and Locke. So Kat is a female police detective and Locke is an AI detective. And they basically go about solving cold cases that would not be able to be solved without AI. And even as I say that, I'm like, oh, boring. Like, it's not my usual sort of read. And I don't know if I would have picked it up if other people haven't recommended it so much. But genuinely, these books are an absolute treat. And if, like me, you're not sure after the first one, just keep going. I read all of these on audio, and I would say the audiobooks are really good. It's just a series that I just love, and I cannot wait for the next one to come out, which is the last one in the series, though, and that is sad. And we've made it to the end. My last 5-star book of 2025 was Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. This is a bit of a cult favourite. I think everyone loves this book, or everyone's read this book, and I felt like I was definitely the last one on the train to read this, but I am happy to say that I absolutely loved it. Near the end of this year, I've sort of been reading a lot more sci-fi books, which is really not like me, but it is a genre that I am really enjoying. So if anyone does have any sci-fi books that you think that I might like, please let me know. I've read all of Andy Weir's ones, which is like The Martian, Artemis, Project Hail Mary. I've read all of them. And I've read this one by Blake Crouch. So if there's any other ones, let me know, because it is a genre that I know pretty much nothing about. I've got Red Rising on my shelf. Yeah, that's about it. So if you have any sci-fi recommendations, please let me know. So Dark Matter is basically about this man, Jason, and he is really loved up with his wife and his son. And he's like, right, I'm just going to pop out to the shops. He goes out to the shops, and then the next thing he finds out is he's woken up on this gurney in this lab, and they're all like, yay, welcome home. And he's like, where on earth am I? And from there, it really sort of spirals out of control. Now, this is definitely sci-fi, but I found it pretty accessible and I didn't find it difficult to read. I think that Blake Crouch has done it in quite an accessible way. And again, this is one of the books that I just couldn't stop thinking about for weeks afterwards. I just thought it was fantastic. And I would say believe the hype with this one. I have seen some people say it's a little bit too confusing for them. They don't really know like what's going on. If anyone's into the Marvel films and they talk about, you know, like the multiverse, it's kind of along the same lines of that. So if that's maybe too much for you, maybe give it a swerve. But for me, I really enjoyed it and thought it was a whole lot of fun. Okay, so that is the end of my 2025 reading wrap up. I have had such a fun year reading and I just can't wait for 2026. I do think next year I have set my reading goals 36 as per usual, but I do want to sort of branch out a little bit next year. I do want to try a little bit more sci-fi because I have really enjoyed that this year. I do fancy trying a couple of fantasy books, but I'm just not sure they're going to be my thing. I don't think romantasy is definitely not my thing. So if anyone has any sci-fi or fantasy recommendations, please let me know because it is something I do want to sort of try next year. But if you are here for the thrillers, do not be alarmed. There will be plenty of thrillers coming your way. It's just my favourite genre and that's never going to change. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment. If you have any recommendations, please let me know. I am just starting out, so it all means so much to me. But thank you so much for watching and I'll see you next time.